With the Eminence in Shadow Season 2 nearing its end, the newest episode 11, which is titled Determination, we have Rose Oriana being forced to face the truth, but also whether or not she is able to overcome her own demons and finally discovering her purpose in life with help from Sid. As usual, the anime did make some creative changes to certain aspects from the light novel, so I will be discussing about those along with breaking down the episode. It goes without saying there will be spoilers for people that haven't watched the episode yet, so here's a spoiler warning just in case. And if you enjoyed this cut content / breakdown video, feel free to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, it really helps a lot. Now then, the episode will be adapting Chapter 2 and a portion of Chapter 3 from the Volume 4 light novel. And it starts with Zeta leading a raiding party on Mordred's base, looking for an artifact that is connected to the Ring of Succession. But since this item is a completely original addition to the anime, we will only learn about its importance later in the episode. But moving on, Epsilon will be performing for the nobles at the palace, so Sid was free to relax in the music room, and after his meeting with Rose, he planned on freeing Queen Reina so that Perth Asshat no longer has any leverage over Rose. He hopes that this will give Rose the freedom to kill Perth and seize control of the throne to finally become the legendary tyrant that he wants. However, his planning was interrupted by Margaret and much of her dialogues were removed from the episode. For example, the part where Margaret was worrying about Sid being hurt by Kevin the guard and her revealing that she was the one to report him for stealing food were removed. Honestly, this would have been a nice detail to keep because it reinforces how people view those with artistic talent in this nation. Nevertheless, Margaret was trying to convince Sid that his talents were being wasted by his supposed master Chiron, and unlike the episode where he was held down by her, she was actually chasing him around the room in the light novel. Furthermore, Epsilon arriving to stop Margaret from disturbing Sid and the argument was slightly different from what we see in the episode. Instead of listening to the argument, it was replaced with an original sequence of Sid escaping to play piano in his boxers, which definitely added to the comedy. To continue, Epsilon's conversation with Sid about the Black Rose pretty much followed the light novel, and it was hilarious how he misunderstood her, thinking that it was just a normal flower. This causes Epsilon to misunderstand as well. She assumed that Sid wanted to see the Black Rose in the sense that he wants to destroy or control it, which further increased her adoration for him. Regardless, the episode referencing the volunteer army Black Rose Brotherhood that he had joined in the web novel was such a cool detail. But anyway, Sid leaves to find Queen Reina, although the part where he asked Epsilon about the Queen's room wasn't shown in the episode. He eventually found her room and he learns that Queen Reina not only was the one responsible for drugging the king, but she has an intimate relationship with Perth as well. They even plan on killing Rose after the wedding so that they can finally get married. And because of this revelation, Sid formulated a new plan to show Rose the truth about her mother, believing that the rage would cause her to finally awaken as the tyrant. Sid really believed that Rose was a sociopathic murderer like him, completely misreading her personality. In any case, before he finds Rose again, a brief sequence involving Sid following Epsilon after seeing her trying to break into Perth's room did get removed from the episode. Basically, Epsilon has been trying to find the Ring of Succession, but because she couldn't find the ring on Perth, she decided to check his room, and this causes another misunderstanding. Sid thought that Epsilon lost her keys, so she was lockpicking the door. That's why he told her to not worry about the key, and he assumed that because she had lockpicked the door, she doesn't need the key anymore, which in turn made her assume that he had already found a solution to the missing ring. And technically she wasn't wrong. Despite not knowing the importance of the ring, Sid did manage to steal the ring in a previous episode. With that said, going over to Rose, she was saddened by Margaret's cold behavior towards her, but for the sake of her father and to protect her mother, she was willing to endure all the resentment and hate. However, she was about to experience a harsh reality check when Shadow arrives, and unlike what we saw in the episode, his arrival in the light novel was described to be much more dramatic. Shadow then brought her to Queen Reina's room and she finally discovers the truth about her mother's relationship with Perth, and I have to commend the episode for making it much more sexual and disturbing than the light novel. Also, Rose's reaction after learning the truth was definitely more intense in the episode as well, although it doesn't exactly cover how her mind was going crazy trying to piece together everything like in the light novel. To give you a quick rundown, when Rose realized why Victoria was trying to kill her mother at Fort First, she finally understood that saving her mother was a mistake and she essentially betrayed Shadow Garden and her friends for nothing. Even her dedication to protect her mother for her father's sake was meaningless, so it wasn't surprising that Rose had a complete mental breakdown. And it was crazy how Shadow still wanted Rose to exact her vengeance on both Perth and Queen Reina. He really is a sociopath, but hey, at least the episode added the detail of him apologizing to Rose. Thus, Shadow quickly returns Rose to her room and much of her internalized thoughts from the light novel when this happened were removed from the episode. Essentially, the realization of everything she has been fighting for was a total lie causes Rose to start questioning her own purposes in life, and she simply wants her nightmare to end so that she can return to those blissful days of ignorance with her beloved Sid again. Luckily, before she sank into despair, she was able to encounter Sid again, but this time he was playing Moonlight Sonata on her balcony, and it was still heartbreaking how broken she was. And a minor detail that wasn't mentioned here but in the light novel, Rose actually recognizes the way Sid plays Moonlight Sonata and thought it was similar to Shadow, so it hints at the possibility that she might discover his true identity in the future. That said, his speech to Rose was basically the same as the light novel, although the episode definitely made it feel more dramatic, and I have to say, he does have a point. Life is full of distractions, and sometimes it's easy to forget about the smaller important things in life, but if we are willing to look at certain things more closely, it becomes harder to lose sight of what actually matters. Honestly, despite being a deranged sociopath, Sid definitely knows how to give a poignant speech and motivate someone when he really wants to, because don't forget, he's only doing all of this so that Rose will consider seizing the throne again. With that, he will suddenly disappear, leaving behind the ring of succession, which causes Rose to think that this was his way of trying to convey his true love for her. Of course, this was another misunderstanding and he never intended to drop the ring. In fact, he actually planned on selling it in the light novel. In any case, Sid returns to the Mitsugoshi Hotel, seemingly satisfied with his speech, although he does mention that if Rose doesn't recover from her mental breakdown, he plans on crashing the wedding as the Eminence in shadow and stealing the bride away, which wasn't included in the episode. But continuing on, Sid was about to enjoy the hotel's open bath when Epsilon offered to wash his back, and he actually accepted, although in the light novel he had declined her offer. And it was hilarious that Epsilon assumed Sid was staring at the boobs and praising her figure when in reality, he was only admiring her precise magical control over the slime bodysuit. And I'm not sure whether this was intentional or not, but it was such an awesome detail to have the bath scene with Sid happening in both seasons episode 11. That being said, he will inform her about the matter regarding Rose, and him mentioning giving the key to Rose was another great detail because it actually has a double meaning. The metaphorical key to help motivate her and the literal key to the Black Rose, which was the ring of succession that he had dropped. And with that, Sid waited for the final battle that take place during the wedding while Epsilon starts preparing their forces. Now, when it came time for the wedding, there were actually quite a lot of exposition from the light novel that were removed from the episode, like some of Perth's internalized thoughts and monologue. For starters, he was quite worried about Shadow Garden interfering, so he ordered more soldiers to secure the perimeter, and he even complained about the effectiveness of the cult and how they are underestimating not just Shadow but his entire organization as well, because despite their interference at Fort First, it seems that Mordred or the cult still haven't made any advances in trying to stop Shadow Garden. Furthermore, he also talks about his deal with Mordred and that in exchange for a place on the rounds, he'll be supporting Mordred's faction once it joins to increase their influence over the cult. This would have been such a nice detail for the episode to keep because it highlights how conceited and fragile the cult actually is, being splintered into various factions and are quite prone to infighting. But adding to this, I did find a moment when Perth realizes the ring was missing, and his reaction after being contacted by Mordred to be much more hilarious in the episode, although the reasoning behind his panic reaction in the light novel were again left out. To explain, he was panicking because he knew that Mordred would definitely kill him if he doesn't find the ring, so this causes him to start thinking about the possible culprits responsible. He initially suspected it was either Queen Reina or Shadow Garden, and even considered Shadow himself, which he was correct, but thinking that he would have been dead by now if Shadow had somehow come into contact with him, he dismisses the idea and ultimately concluded it must have been sabotage from another faction within the cult. So moving on, the wedding had started and Rose will enter the cathedral, but the episode doesn't showcase a newfound resolve, stating that she knows what she finally needs to do and that she no longer has any fears or regrets. Thus, she walks down the aisle to meet with Perth, who are still searching for the ring, and it was funny that Sid was the one playing the organ for the wedding, which was a sequence original to the anime. Anyways, during the exchange of vows, Rose refused and like a total badass, she declares Perth guilty for his crime of high treason, even ignoring his threats against Queen Reina. She then takes out the ring of succession while professing her true feelings for Sid, and as she puts on the ring, a message from the deceased king was broadcasted to everyone in the Oriana kingdom, and what was said pretty much followed the light novel. He essentially revealed the truth about the evil deeds of Perth, while entrusting the future of the nation to Rose and asking the public to believe in her. Also, it was quite touching and heartbreaking that the episode added the extra line of the king saying he loves Rose, showing that up to his dying breath, he never once doubted his daughter. Having revealed Perth's evil plans, all the nobles turn on him and Rose takes out her rapier, preparing to arrest him, but unlike what we saw in the episode, he had tried to fight back in the light novel but he was easily defeated by her. However, before Rose could even capture Perth, he was decapitated by Mordred and Queen Reina would be killed as well. Mordred would then introduce himself, and this wasn't explicitly stated in the episode, but Rose was able to somewhat recognize the name because she had heard about him during her time in Shadow Garden. And after his introductions, he activated the Black Rose, and it was portrayed in a slightly different manner as compared to the light novel. In the episode, he uses the artifact that Zeta was searching in the beginning of the episode, whereas originally, he simply released his mana to activate the Black Rose. Additionally, when Mordred summoned Ragnarok, the Grand Ruler of the 4th Realm, the episode has skipped a few of the sequences from the light novel that happened prior to this. For instance, the episode skipped the parts where Mordred summons numerous obsidian monsters to attack the people, Rose trying her best to hold them off and saving Margaret from one, the arrival of Shadow Garden to help, namely Victoria 664 and 665, with Beta and Epsilon confronting Mordred. But it's still possible they'll be including the missing parts I mentioned in the next episode, so we'll just have to wait and see. Having said that, Ragnarok started to destroy the surroundings, and Shadow's arrival in the light novel was quite sudden, whereas here in the episode, Sid was still playing the organ as chaos was happening around him, and he was obviously doing this for dramatic effect. And having the music stop when he changes into his Shadow persona was such a cool detail. And say what you want about Shadow, but he really knows how to make an entrance.
だが醜いな。
So yeah, that was my breakdown for the Eminence in Shadow Season 2, but despite some very interesting and enjoyable moments, I felt like they definitely rushed the episode, taking away much of the content from the light novel, but it was still nice seeing Sid being more fleshed out as a person, and even though Rose discovering the entire truth was brutal yet cathartic for her, at least she finally found her purpose and resolve. But what about you? What are your thoughts on the episode? Did you like it or do you think they could have done better? Feel free to leave your answers in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this episode breakdown and cut content video, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button as well for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.